I grew up in a big Italian American family. I was the oldest daughter, the oldest granddaughter, and great grandchild, too. And I love spending most Sundays and holidays together with my aunts, uncles, and many cousins, all crowded around my grandmother's table. I can still see the flowered wallpaper and smell my grandmother's cooking. I had fascination with birth, and I loved listening to all the family birth stories. And through them, I received a great appreciation for the power of women's bodies to give birth. My great grandmother, she had 8 babies, all born at home. She talked about moving, walking, and challenges too, but all being manageable and important parts of bringing life into the world. And her love and her joy was palpable. And both my mother and grandmother also had powerful birth stories too, each unique that guided me to what I wanted in birth one day. So fast forward, I grew up, I moved to Montreal to attend McGill University, where in my final year, I was married and prepared to give birth. I was shocked to learn that the medical model had taken over and stripped the joy and love that I'd seen and heard in my family's stories away. Canada, through a series of legislation like the US, had regulated away its midwives, the keeper of natural birth, only to realize their mistake and thankfully return midwives, but sadly, not in enough time for my birth. So I went searching for a doctor who would trust me to give birth the way my ancestors had, upright, moving, trusting my ability. Sounds simple? It was not. I found a young resident who had not been indoctrinated into what I call a dysfunctional maternity care model. He was perfect. We could learn together. He listened and he understood all that I desired. So I arrive at the hospital all excited, and he was across town in another hospital. So the idea that I would have a typical care at that time, hooked up to an IV, in bed with a bedpan and medication, was scary. I asked to use the toilet and locked myself in the bathroom. I yelled through the door, there are 2 conditions I will come out: my baby's born or my doctor arrives. Luckily, before they cut the door down, my doctor knocked at my door and said, when they told me there was a woman locked in the bathroom in labor and delivery, I knew it would be you. Together with his support, I did it. I gave birth my way, upright. I was the first upright birth ever in that hospital, and without an episiotomy, a cut that was often given to widen the birth canal. I said to him, if you don't cut me, I won't cut you. And he got it. No cutting needed. I not only gave birth to my son, I became a fierce advocate for change. My birth ignited my interest to become a childbirth educator so I could help people prepare for birth by gathering all their stories that had been lost. Back in the US, 2 years later, I was ready to give birth to my second baby, and I found a female OB. I thought, a woman, she'll honor and respect my choices, and she sure agreed in prenatal visits. But no, on the day, she barged in, flipped on the lights, started hollering directions to my nurse. It was so absurd and disturbing, my labor completely stalled. She left. My husband turned out the lights and helped me feel safe again. My son was born 20 minutes later. My husband and I were alone in the room. I learned how sensitive we are in labor. The words, the way people make us feel, either open us to birth or can close us down. For my third baby, I finally had what I'd been looking for all along, a midwife. Lonnie Morris trusted me and trusted birth. I could do what my body needed to do. I could freely move, take a shower, experience joy and even humor amidst the challenge. This was the way birth should be. This is what I had heard in my great-grandmother's stories, being surrounded by other women in a safe space to listen to my body move and have an ecstatic, what I call orgasmic birth. My son needed a little help get it started, and my midwife encouraged me to hold him and talk to him. She was there to do more if he'd been in any danger, but she helped me to help him instead, giving me a feeling of confidence rather than taking him away from me, separating us both when we needed each other most. I learned so much from each birth. I saw firsthand how much we've lost since my great grandmother's time and how we're just beginning to learn that less is more in birth. The medical model saves lives when it's needed, but the overuse and insensitive, disrespectful care is putting people at risk emotionally and physically. There are so many simple ways midwives have used to support birth that keep mothers and babies safe. As I was growing with each birth, I became more passionate about helping others to have the birth they desire. I became a doula, attending births and offering physical and emotional comfort and support. I directed a documentary, Orgasmic Birth, and in the process met many others who either had positive experiences or sadly, too many with negative experience that knew there was a better way. We gathered late at night in hotel rooms, often in our pajamas after long days at conferences, and we would stay up sharing our passion, reviewing the emerging science that the medical model of care was off course. And we decided it's time to show the way to a healthy model of care, and the Mother-Friendly Childbirth Initiative was born. One of the people who shared my passion was midwife Mary Kroger. I can still see her long hair, her big smile, and amazing stories about her travels around the world teaching birth and breastfeeding captivated me and many others. Mary had big dreams and a vision for how to make the changes that were needed to save lives. She suggested we create a committee and invite people from around the world to come together to develop a global initiative. Sadly, Mary developed late-stage cancer and could not chair the first meeting. She asked me to chair it, and I didn't feel I was the right person, but I had to overcome my fears. As if Mary believed in me, I had to trust I could do it. It was a warm day as a group of strangers dedicated to create better birth experiences gathered from around the world and created their vision list for improving childbirth. I remember holding and reading that end list, a global survey on birth and breastfeeding, a meeting of 20 major birth and breastfeeding organizations to meet in Geneva, Switzerland, and launch a global initiative. I asked, who's leading this? Guess what? The group replied, you are. Scared, honored, I went home. Mary passed shortly after, and I was heartbroken. And she asked me to promise her that I would continue until the model we all knew was possible was the global standard. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever had, said Margaret Mead. And we did it. Representatives from around the world and University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill did the largest global survey. Volunteers wrote letters with private support and support from Childbirth Connection, Johnson & Johnson Pediatric Institute, and even the World Health Organization and UNICEF co-chaired the meeting with us in Geneva 1 year later. In a small formal room with tables in a U shape, we met. The formality of the heads of each organization with their own agenda made me wonder, how would we ever come together with one voice? On the second morning of our time together, with little sleep and fear that our dream would fade if we couldn't do this today, I sat down to see a red ball wrapped in plastic in front of us all. We were all being too formal to open it, and no one knew who put it there. Our pediatric representative came in last, and she said she feared we'd be too stuck up to open it. It was a clown nose. These noses are the reason I believe the International Childbirth Initiative was born. We laughed together, and when moments became tense, we'd put on our noses to remind each other to go lightly. Breaking down barriers, we soon came together. We did it. With the help of another friend, Robbie Davis Floyd, an amazing editor, she found the words we could all agree to. 2 years ago, the International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics collaborated with us on a new initiative, bringing our two organizations together. And with many other global partners, we've moved from 10 to 12 steps. I co-chair the International Childbirth Initiative, and I know we're on our way to fulfilling Mary's vision and changing childbirth, saving lives, reducing disparities, and creating health equity with respectful care for all. We still have work to do. As a grandmother, I want my grandchildren to have the opportunity to give birth where people's emotional well-being will be honored as much as their physical safety. It is the magic of coming together, listening, and sharing our stories that creates the opportunity for change to happen. Now I'm the grandmother sharing my story. I hope it will impact you as much as my grandmother's story changed my life.